We just had a wonderful lunch here at the Seiko Open Weeks 2022, and now I'm going to talk to a person that I've been connected with on LinkedIn for some time, Mark Bale. So Mark, great to see you in person.
Hi, yeah, great to meet finally after encountering each other lots and lots on LinkedIn.
Precisely. You are a consultant and have a lab, and you have specialized in inkjet printheads. Right?
Yes, so I've got a background in microfabrication and a background in PZD for my PhD in physics, and it kind of comes nicely with being a bit nerdy about printheads and how they work. And I help people not only by doing testing in a lab, but by offering training through different sources and basically doing tests that give a practical input to people's process developments.
And as we spoke about before the interview, we spoke to Tree, who is like your counterpart on inks, kind of thing.
Yeah, the king of rheology. Yeah.
Yeah, and you of course do it with the inkjet printheads. If you look at the inkjet printheads and the, of course, relation with the inks and also the substrates, how is that correlation between the three in your view?
Well, the classic triangle that people talk about is ink, substrate, and head. And clearly that is very relevant, that the substrate is part of the manufacturing process. And that applies to a wide range of applications. I mean, there are some where the ink itself is also the substrate, like in 3D. So that complicates things a little bit. But generally speaking, it's that interaction that I help people understand. And the success of inkjet is closely related to the ability to make what's needed and the ability to keep doing that over and over again, so reliability.
Can't help think about, as you know, I'm a layman, but a very curious layman. And I was just thinking because if you look at the industry right now, and I know that you may not be specifically interested in commercial or labels or anything like that, but when you look at the industry, it seems that there is a tendency that vendors and OEMs, they buy the printheads, but they want to do their own controllers, they want to do their own inks, and it seems so integrated part of that to getting the high value out of a printhead. How do you see that development?
Well, I think certainly there's a value in vertical integration in organizations that are doing certain types of offering. And I think in paper and production print, that's probably most exemplified by the big OEMs who also make heads. But when you look in the industrial market, then there's a whole spectrum of integrators and OEMs and self-OEMs, so the people that make the stuff and make machines to make the stuff, who will use the different components available in different ways. And that might be taking a board off the shelf from a Meteor or GIS, or it might be making one themselves if they have that electronics capability. But let's be clear, digital heads do require specific electronics, and so it is a professional requirement to build one. Yeah. So you see big OEMs, particularly in graphics, who have been doing that for years and years. But you see lots of new startups who are doing it the kind of a bit of the easier way, and showing what's possible sooner as a result. And one of the nice things about the inkjet ecosystem is that there are the parts available, heads, like we're here at Seiko, that make it almost as close as possible, plug and play, to get fluid out ahead. And then it's about the process, including a substrate, including all the ancillary hardware, and the transport, that makes that into a printer or a manufacturing tool.
But the reason I'm asking is because, as you said yourself, your interest is in the printheads.
Yeah.
But I take that you cannot really isolate it from the rest of the technology around the printhead, right?
No, you can't. And if you look at any machine here, it's a combination of the hardware that makes movement, that supplies ink, which is critical because if a head's not going to work if you can't keep supplying ink to it successfully. And as we see inkjet get into more and more applications with what I would call difficult materials, so ones which are less straightforward than a typical dye water-based ink where everyone started, then the particulars of the head and the delivery system of the fluid become quite important interaction. And recirculation, for example, only makes that more important. And it's not just the head and the pump. In the recirculation, it's the filters, it's the degassers, it's the temperature control. All of that is coming together to play the right tune, right?
Yeah. So the recirculation that was also introduced to here with Seiko from the 1536 printhead, is that from a technical perspective something that is difficult to achieve, or?
Well, The RC head is a high flow head, so it means that you need a certain amount of pumpability in your ink supply system to keep it fed before you even start printing. So yeah, research heads do have their complications, but the benefits outweigh the disadvantages in complexity because of the number of materials it allows you to print with.
Back to where we ended just before because of the technical hiccup, I asked you, in your daily work as a consultant and having a lab, what is it you do and what is it you offer?
So I work to help people from a practical perspective, from the point of finding a process that they want to do, which is effectively either something they want to decorate or something they want to actually manufacture from scratch, which in the case of 3D printing, and help them identify the technology that will get them there. And my focus in demonstrating that in a practice is definitely the printhead, because it's one of the key enabling technologies for the material that makes the part. And if that's a textile, and of course that's an ink, pigment or dye, it's delivered in water typically. But if it's a 3D print, then it's a wide range of different chemistries, from UV curable to wax removable materials, which is quite exotic and enjoyable to work on at the same time. And for some applications, it's things like hot melts. And they require very specific ink supply requirements. And just being able to demonstrate all those things is useful if people are struggling to know where to start.
How do you keep yourself up to date when so much development takes place these years?
Well, that is a good question. I read a lot of patents, and I also go to a lot of conferences and things. And where printhead's concerned, you go to events like this, and you learn about what people are trying to do and how you can help improve that from knowledge. And it's all about data in, data out. So thankfully, I've got an okay brain to keep up with data in. And then every now and then, I manage to get some of the data out intelligibly, which helps.
And I was just thinking that when you look at a printhead, I mean they have like billions of nozzles. They have, or millions, or at least, right?
The printers do, certainly.
Yeah. And I was just wondering because when you evaluate or when you look into these, is it mainly that you start with the patents and the specifications, or can you also measure the expected output from what they expected to deliver? How do you do it in like?
So in a real hands-on sense, when you get a new printhead, the first thing is getting hold of one.
Yeah.
And
does it feel good?
Yeah. Well,
does it smell like a new car?
Depends how much I had to pay for it, right? But no, seriously, when you make a new printhead, you've got your important customers who are going to get it first, and then realistically, I'm not top of that list. But as a result, the applications I work on tend to be the more adventurous ones, which come a little bit later than the headline stuff we read about in a lot of your articles. So I work at the nitty-gritty end, and so I'll get ahead maybe a year after it was commercially offered to the market. I work with the head suppliers to look at applications beyond the headline ones that it can offer function, and then get one in, get the drive electronics, actually use it, measure stuff with a drop watcher, and I've got one from Meteor who's here, and from Jet Expert, and use that to prove what's possible. And of course, printing stuff. My job is not only to look at jobs, what my wife calls paint drying, but actually to print stuff and prove we can make things with inkjet. So, and the head is an important part of delivering the variability of applications that it can be applicable to. And RC is a good example because of that material handling capability. So recirculation means you can do water-based, it means you can do big pigments, it means you can do heavy stuff, and that helps a lot.
So when the day is over, fortunately, it's still about the output, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always about the output and how repeatably you can make it.
Fantastic. Mark, great to meet you. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thanks.